For centuries, a key part of the biblical narrative was dismissed by some historians as little more than a hopeful story. The account of Jewish captives in Babylon being freed by a foreign king to return home and rebuild their sacred temple seemed too good to be true. Then, in 1879, in the ruins of ancient Babylon, archaeologists unearthed a small clay barrel, just 9 inches long, and it changed the entire conversation. But here's the thing you need to know. This artifact, the Cyrus Cylinder, doesn't say what most people think it says. Today, we're going to examine one of history's most famous and most misunderstood ancient documents. By the end of this video, you will understand what the Cyrus Cylinder actually says, how it connects to the biblical narrative, and most importantly, what those connections really prove. We will separate the historical facts from the hype, looking at what archaeologists, biblical scholars, and the ancient records themselves tell us. This isn't about faith or doubt, it's about history. So, what is the Cyrus Cylinder? Physically, it's a barrel-shaped piece of baked clay, now housed in the British Museum. It was discovered in 1879 during excavations of ancient Babylon in modern-day Iraq by an archaeologist named Hormuzd Rassam. The entire surface is covered in text written in Akkadian cuneiform, the official script of ancient Mesopotamia. This artifact was created as a foundation deposit in the year 539 before Common Era. This was right after Cyrus the Great, the brilliant founder of the Persian Empire, conquered the seemingly invincible city of Babylon. Now, Cyrus was a conqueror, but his methods were shockingly different from his predecessors. Instead of destroying temples and enslaving populations to show his dominance, the cylinder records that he adopted a radical policy of religious tolerance and cultural restoration. The text on the cylinder is essentially Cyrus's official public proclamation. It's a piece of masterful political propaganda. It introduces him, outlines his royal lineage, and portrays him as being chosen by Marduk, the chief god of Babylon, to restore peace and order to the land. It sharply criticizes the previous king, Nabonidus, as an oppressive and impious ruler. The text emphasizes that Cyrus was welcomed by the people of Babylon as their new ruler and entered the city in peace. And this is what made Cyrus revolutionary for his time. The cylinder records that he didn't force Persian religion on anyone. Instead, he did the opposite. He restored local temples, he returned religious artifacts and idols to their original sanctuaries, and he permitted displaced peoples to return to their homelands. In the brutal world of ancient warfare, this was almost unheard of. The standard playbook was to crush, loot, and assimilate. Cyrus's policy was to restore, repatriate, and respect. The cylinder itself says he gathered all the former inhabitants and returned them to their homes. For peoples with idols, he returned those idols unharmed to their cells, in the sanctuaries that make them happy. For the Jewish captives who had no idols, this policy would apply to the sacred gold and silver articles taken from their temple. You may have heard the cylinder called the first bill of human rights. While that's a modern term and a bit of an exaggeration, it captures why this document is so significant. It represents an early and remarkably enlightened approach to governing a diverse empire. So, where does the Bible come into all of this? The connection is extraordinary. The Hebrew Bible contains a detailed account of events that align perfectly with the policies described on the Cyrus Cylinder. The Book of Ezra records that Cyrus issued a specific decree permitting the Jewish captives to return to Jerusalem and rebuild their temple. Ezra chapter 6, verses 3 through 5, even specifies that Cyrus ordered the return of the gold and silver articles taken from the temple, the exact policy the cylinder describes for religious artifacts. But here is where the story takes a truly remarkable turn. The Book of Isaiah contains prophecies that not only predict this event, but name Cyrus specifically. And according to biblical scholarship, these prophecies were written down more than 100 years before Cyrus was even born. Isaiah chapter 44 verse 28 states, "Who says of Cyrus, 'He is my shepherd, and will accomplish all that I please.' He will say of Jerusalem, 'Let it be rebuilt,' and of the temple, 'Let its foundations be laid.'" When we compare what Isaiah predicts with what the Cyrus Cylinder and other historical records confirm about Cyrus's actual policies, the alignment is stunning. Cyrus did allow exiles to return. He did fund the rebuilding of temples. His policies were historically documented. However, careful scholars point out some important caveats. The cylinder never explicitly mentions the Jews, Jerusalem, or the Jewish temple by name. It describes a general policy applied to many conquered peoples. The correlation is powerful, but it is not a direct one-to-one mention. So, what does this artifact actually prove, and what does it not prove? Let's be very clear. The Cyrus Cylinder absolutely confirms several historical facts that provide a framework for the biblical narrative. 1. It confirms that a king named Cyrus conquered Babylon around 539 before Common Era. 2. It confirms his official policy was to repatriate displaced peoples to their homelands. 3. It confirms that restoring local temples and religious sanctuaries was a key part of this policy. These are not matters of faith, they are historical facts recorded in an official royal inscription from the time. What the cylinder does times not times do is prove the Bible is true in an absolute theological sense. It corroborates the specific historical claims made in books like Ezra and Isaiah, but it cannot validate supernatural claims. The proper way to frame it is this: the Cyrus Cylinder provides powerful archaeological corroboration. It proves that the historical setting described in the Bible, the Babylonian captivity, the Persian conquest, and the policy of repatriation, is historically accurate. It shows that the biblical writers had accurate knowledge of these 6th century events and politics. That historical credibility is immensely significant, but it's different from proving the Bible's theological claims wholesale. And the evidence keeps growing. As recently as 2010, curators at the British Museum discovered 2 additional fragments from other clay tablets bearing the same text as the cylinder, suggesting this proclamation was a widely distributed imperial decree. So why does all of this matter? For historians, the cylinder provides a rare and invaluable window into ancient Persian governance and ideology. It shows how an ancient emperor justified his rule not just through power, but through a narrative of liberation and restoration. For biblical scholars, the artifact demonstrates that the biblical writers were operating with accurate historical information. They weren't just writing fiction, they were recording real-world events through their own theological lens. And for all of us, the cylinder shows how archaeology can illuminate ancient texts. A historical event can be accurately recorded by different cultures, even while carrying completely different religious interpretations. To the Babylonians, Cyrus was chosen by their god, Marduk. To the writer of Isaiah, he was the chosen instrument of the God of Israel. Both were describing the same historical events. So, let's distill this down to 3 essential takeaways. First, the Cyrus Cylinder is a real, authenticated artifact that records the official policies of Cyrus, the great policies of religious tolerance, and the repatriation of exiled peoples. Second, it corroborates, it doesn't prove key parts of the biblical accounts in Ezra and Isaiah. The alignment is historically significant and confirms the accuracy of the Bible's historical framework. And third, it reminds us that historical truth is often layered. The same event can be recorded accurately by different people who see the hand of a different god at work. The Cyrus Cylinder is one of history's most fascinating intersections of archaeology, ancient history, and biblical studies. It shows that we don't have to choose between intellectual honesty and a respect for ancient texts. We can examine the evidence carefully, acknowledge what it confirms and what it doesn't, and arrive at a richer, more nuanced understanding of the past. The story it tells of an ancient conqueror showing unprecedented mercy and of an exiled people allowed to go home is compelling enough on its own. For links to read a full translation of the Cyrus Cylinder for yourself and to explore the museum exhibits, check out the resources I've put in the description below. Now I want to hear from you. What surprised you most about what the Cyrus Cylinder actually says? Does the powerful corroboration impress you, or were you expecting a more explicit mention of the events in the Bible? Let me know in the comments. And if you found this deep dive into history and archaeology helpful, please subscribe and turn on notifications for more content that separates evidence from myth. Thank you for watching.